start a presentation by asking everyone a question. So has anyone been a minute taker before?
Me, I'm one minute taker myself before. Yep.
So do you use the minute as future reference after recording it?
No, I don't do that.
See, often people do not disregard meeting minute and overlook its importance. It's vital to know the techniques to write and use meeting minutes. You never know when you'll be appointed a role as a minute taker, perhaps during your internship or your future job. Moreover, the skills of minute taking is indispensable and highly valued by future employer. That brings us the rationale of choosing this topic and effective meeting minutes to better equip everyone with the skills of writing minutes. So the presentation outline will be as follows. I'll bring all of you through the definition and importance of meeting minutes, followed by the case study. Joan, the second speaker, will be presenting on the preparation work to be done during before the meeting, followed by Raymond, who will be presenting on how to record a meeting effectively. Xiaolong, the last speaker, will be presenting on the things to be done after a meeting, followed by the conclusion. So what are meeting minutes? It's the instant written record of a meeting, typically describe the events of the meeting, starting with a list of attendees, a statement of issues addressed by the participants, and the related response to the issues. And the importance of meeting minutes, it allows people to know that their suggestions are considered. It helps to keep track of the topics covered, decisions that were made, and action items that were agreed upon. By doing so, people who are not present at the meeting will be able to keep up with the information. Additionally, it also provides a historical record that can be used in future meetings for verification of decisions and avoid repetitive discussion. So our group will be using a minute of an NTU Hall Freshman Orientation Camp as the case study to illustrate our point. So let's look at the elements of a meeting minute. It consists of the particulars of a meeting, the starting and ending time, who is present and who is absent, the agenda topics, who is the minute taker, and who vetted and approved the minutes. So generally it's a well-structured minute, but with some imperfections. For instance, agenda topics could be put in tabular format, and important points could be color-coded. By doing so, people will be able to pick up information easily. Other issues with the minutes will be further elaborated by my other group members. So with that, I shall pass on the presentation to the next speaker.
For my section about the pre-meeting, I'll go through what's the preparation necessary before the meeting. There's 4 key sections to it. And moving into the first section of understanding the purpose. How do you do so? Is by fulfilling the following 4 checklist items. After doing so, you'll be able to determine the purpose. Is the purpose of the meeting information sharing, decision making, or problem solving? And second step is to clarify the expectation. By discussing the meeting with the chairperson, you'll be able to understand their expectation of your role during the meeting. Knowing the style of minutes will also let you know what type of details they will expect in your minutes. For one extreme case is that verbatim minutes is like a transcript where you practically write down everything, but often used in legal proceedings. Discussion meetings is often lengthy but applicable when the discussion leading to the decisions made will be in question later. Action minutes is the most common of the 3. Often record the decisions made, what the actions to be taken, but it doesn't include the discussion leading to the decisions. After this, you have to go through your agenda as well. So, in essence, agenda is the frame for the structure of the meeting and what are the list of items to be addressed during the meeting. And let me show you the format of my agenda. Based on our case study, we will have to have some critical sections. For instance, what's the details of the upcoming meeting? What type of meeting are you talking about? Who is the facilitator? And who are the participants to this meeting? What's the issues to be tackled? Person responsible for the task and the assigned deadline have to be included as well. If you think about it, why do we need to put so much effort into doing up an agenda? Obviously, there's some importance to it. One of them is it will assist in the preparation and planning. Before the meeting, minutes and agenda will be given in advance. So this will give the attendees ample time to do up reports and provide update on agenda items. Following that, attendees will have greater control over the flow of information. So this will help to keep the meeting focused and achieve its ultimate purpose within a predetermined time frame. Following that, it will also increase productivity because attendees will move the meeting at an appropriate pace to address all the agenda items. So this gives an attendees a sense of accomplishment after they know that they fulfill the list of agenda items. Lastly, it also helps in documentation. Why? Because minutes taker will create minutes that answers all the following agenda items. So the last section is that having the necessary tools ready is very important. For instance, laptop will have their sufficient battery life for the entire duration of the meeting, and paper and its necessary stationery. But most importantly is to have copies of minutes, agenda and supporting document so that it will be distributed to the people before the meeting so that they can refer to it and keep their discussion limited to the agenda. And with that, I will pass on my presentation to Wayman to talk about the next section of the presentation.
Okay, so moving on to the next part of the meeting, which is during the meeting, we'll be looking at how to record the meeting effectively. So, there are three important things that the recorder should take note. Firstly is to work effectively with the group, deciding what to record, and how to record efficiently. So, firstly, we'll take a look at how to work effectively with the group. The recorder usually has less verbal contact with the rest of the group. However, this does not mean that his role is not important. The chemistry between the participants and the recorder can have a real impact on how the meeting proceeds and how effective it is. There are a couple of things that the recorder should keep in mind. And firstly is the importance of listening, where the recorder needs to listen hard at all times to make sure that quiet comments don't go unheard and points that were really made do not go unnoticed. And also, he should keep in mind important points and key points and also avoid mind drifting as it will affect his listening. Next is to also remain neutral and not inject his own opinion into the conversation. As you can see from this example here, the recorder has actually injected his own opinion into the minutes, which was something that was not discussed during the meeting. And also, we should ask for clarification if necessary. During the meeting, you might find that certain points of discussion is unclear, and if that's the case, we should interrupt the meeting in order to ask for clarifications. The recorder should always remember that he is responsible for recording the minutes thoroughly and accurately, and that an interruption is better than to record an inaccurate meeting ledger. So moving on to the next part, which is deciding what to record. Now that the meeting is ongoing and everybody is talking, so how do we actually decide what's important to record and what's not? So generally, the recorder will record what is known as the group memory. So what's a group memory? Group memory is simply a fancy term for what is being said. And whatever the recorder writes down will be most of what will be remembered during the meeting. Therefore, it's up to the recorder, with the group's help, to determine what is important. So there are a couple of things that can be said during a meeting, and they include questions, answers, concerns, feedback, ideas, as well as decisions. So the question here is, how do you decide if a comment or question is important enough to write down? I will be giving you some guidelines, but the recorder should always try to come up with some of his own before the meeting commences. For instance, he should write down it a comment if it involves a decision on an agenda item. For example, as you can see from this case study, the decision and the reasons behind it is clearly stated. And also if it involves a specific suggestion made by a group member, or it could be points stated several times with obvious emotion, or it could be new ideas or information that was not previously stated. So moving on to the last part, which is how to record efficiently. There are some tips that I can give you to improve your writing skills. Firstly, you should not try to write every single word. Your hand will just cram up. You should try to paraphrase whenever possible. As you can see from this example here, the recorder has tried to write in short and sweet sentences that are straight to the point. And next, we should also write large, legibly, and fast. Comprehension is the most important here. We should also not worry about spelling. You're able to get the point across. Last but not least, leave out words such as the and as it will take up precious time during the meeting. So without further ado, I shall pass the time on to my groupmate Xiaolong to talk about what happens after the meeting.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about what happens after the meeting. So there's actually 3 important sections for it. Firstly, editing. Second, distribution. And thirdly, archiving. And first, editing. You must always review and clarify any doubts on the spot if you have, like for example after a meeting. And because this is still fresh in the participant's mind, so we will not put it to the next day. And most of it is being forgotten. So next, fulfilling all important elements in a meeting. For example, commitments, anything which is being agreed upon during the meeting, and also the position, whether people are against or for certain ideas. And also next, action to be taken after the meeting. So all this must be based on the facts and not opinion, as being said by the previous speaker. Next, we have to check the content, make sure that you are clear on what you're trying to get across, no ambiguity. Next, stick to the point, keep it brief, not very wordy. And also, make sure that the reader have a clear picture of what you're discussing on. And next, whether the informations are correct, you have to double check on it. And also ensure that there's a logical flow of the ideas, and also that the appropriate points are placed under each relevant topics. Next, if action is to be taken, make sure that the person responsible and also the deadline is being clearly stated inside the minutes. And avoid using words which create schism and also sparks unpleasant emotions which will affect the working dynamics of the team. So this can be linked to the 7 C's of effective communication: clarity, correctness, conciseness, coherent, courtesy, concreteness, and completeness. So next, distribution of minutes. But before that, make sure you vet through it with the chairperson running the meeting. Make sure that no point is being missed out, and also that it's up to his or her expectation. Next, distribute it to the participants and the stakeholders who is concerned with the meeting. And lastly, make sure you distribute it promptly, because this will add professionalism to it, because sufficient time will be given for better decision making and also for action to be followed up. And this will lead to effective functioning of the team. And lastly, archiving. Why do we need to archive? The purpose is for future reference. So next time you can refer to it with what is being agreed on and discussed on the previous meeting. So therefore, it is very important to keep the minutes updated and also make it readily available at all times. Next, to sum up everything. Okay, make sure that, effective minutes is not about going to the meeting and writing everything down word for word. It's about taking the substance of the meeting. So here are the 3 phases which you have to know. So firstly, the pre-meeting preparation. Make sure it's very important to know your agenda and using it as an outline for your minutes template. Next, during the meeting, make sure you work effectively with a group and decide what to record on and not writing it word for word. And also how you record it most efficiently. And lastly, edit it. Make sure it fulfills the 7 C's of effective communication. And also, you have to vet it and distribute it promptly. And lastly, make sure you archive it for future reference. So now you have all the information you need. And also hope that Hope that you can bear in mind with what we have shared with you and apply it in your future career. And hopefully you can impress your boss. So we have come to the end of our presentation. Thank you. Any questions, Amanda?
Okay, I have a question. So, do you foresee yourself using the skills that you said earlier other than in your workplace? Because I think most of us will not be writing minutes in the future, because I think minutes are usually done by secretaries and so forth. So other than, I know you mentioned that we can do it during our internship, but other than that, is there any other place you can use the skills that you taught us?
Actually, you can apply it in your everyday student life as well. When you attend lectures, it's also very important that you write down what's the salient points, what's the most critical points, and jot it down quickly within the time frame of the lecture.
And also, next time when you're listening, for example, if you're working in the customer service line, and also this will also apply because you need to listen carefully to what the customer says and probably note down what the customer says. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions?
You ask what is the purpose. He's probably not going to take any minutes.
Sorry?
You say you are probably not going to take any minutes.
Yeah.
So why?
Because I think in the future, most of us will not be writing minutes. Minutes are usually done by secretaries or interns. But we're not going to be interns for very long, isn't it? So, yeah, so basically the skills that we learn might not be very useful, but I think we sort of answer the question in the sense that you can use it during lectures and so forth.
Lectures.
Yeah.
But you'll be off school already. Why lectures?
But you may be going further learning in the future.
So yeah, point to add on. So sometimes it could be doing like a short informal meeting between the top managers. So assuming you're actually a top manager, so you probably maybe have a meeting of 4 or 5 people, which are all consist of managers. So ultimately, one person will still have to take the initiative to take down the minute. So it could be anyone. That's why I feel that it should be a skill that all of us should have in hand.
When you have your secretary, you've got to make sure your secretary take correct minutes. You can teach her how to take correct minutes. And if you don't know how to take minutes, you cannot blame her if she doesn't know how to take minutes. Any other question? Alright. Just out of curiosity, why did you select this topic?
Because this topic is not really thoroughly mentioned during a lecture, so thus it's an e-lecture, so nobody has exposure to this topic since we really don't write minutes during lesson time.
Yeah, and we also try to find that this topic is quite relevant to ourselves as students. Yeah, so something that we all can relate to more closely.
So you hope the class has learned something from you.
Yeah, and moreover, actually there's a lot of techniques involved. So we feel that we can educate people, so hope that you can apply in the future and don't overlook its importance. Yeah.
Your case study that you use, you didn't refer very much to your case study. I mean, did they do a good job? Which part could they do better?
We did mention during the process. For mine, I'm just doing a background, but my other groupmates did mention like what can be done and what is done correctly, what
should not be done.
What they didn't do well? Did you highlight what they didn't do well?
Yeah. Yeah, so for example, these are one of the examples I try to, but then because it's kind of wordy, so yeah, I'm not going to go through everything, so just quickly go through some points that are not being done accurately. Yeah, so actually I shared 3 examples, but I couldn't possibly like mention more examples because it will take up more time. Yeah, so Zoom it more.
All right, anyway. Thank you very much.